Well, friends, Shabbat Shalom. It's good to see you again. Let's begin again in our prayer book. If you picked up the prayer book in Mishkan Tefillah, let's turn all the way to the back to page 643. Page 643. And if you have one of our large print prayer books and one of the thinner ones that says Shabbat on the spine, you'll see that that version of our prayer book has 2 page numbers. If you have 2 page numbers, follow the page number in blue brackets. So let's begin on 643. The cantor, sadly for you, is visiting her family in Tulsa, which I hear is someplace in the United States. And you know, these weeks have been really challenging in so many ways, just so many ways. Being able to come together, you know, for our Shabbat experiences has always been really lovely and grounding for me. But earlier we were at a rally to talk about these hostages, and we sang Gesher Tzah Ma'od, the prayer, that's the song that is on the second one on page 643. And the words, a lot of us are familiar with these words, but basically it says that the whole world is a narrow bridge. And the most important thing is not to be afraid. But as I get older, I think it's actually okay to be afraid. I think it's healthy to be afraid. I think for myself, I imagine myself, I hate bridges, I hate heights, but a really narrow bridge, I have to focus on some level to find my way across. And I feel like that's what a lot of us need to do right now. How do we keep going when things seem so out of control? How do we continue to journey forward across such a narrow bridge? Whether we're afraid or not, we have to keep going. So, 643. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od, kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od, והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל, יאללה לי, יאי, 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 יאללה, יאללה, יאי, לי, 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 יאללה, לי, יאי, 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 יאללה, יאללה, יאי, לי, יאי, לי, לי. כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל. יפה. Let's turn all the way back to the beginning, page 120, and let's light our Shabbat lights. David, Diane, come forward and join us. Page 120. Thanks, friends. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Good Shabbos. We invite you to rise as you are able. 123. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, b'yahava uvratzon inchilanu, zikaron lemaaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. לחיים. May be seated. Before we continue on, as we always do, I'm going to invite you to turn to someone you don't know and just share your name. Wish each other a Shabbat Shalom. You might have to wave across a crowded room or move to and encounter somebody else. Cheater. Page 138 and 139, Lecha Dodi, the prayer of our mystics. We continue with the first 5 stanzas. After the 5th one, we jump to the very last one. When we reach the last one, we face the open doors in the back of our sanctuary, and symbolically we welcome the Sabbath bride into our midst. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya 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 la la la, ya ya la. Chadoti likrat kala, ya la la, ya la la, ya la la. Bnei Shabbat nekabela. Chadoti likrat kala, ya la la, ya la la, ya la la. Shabbat מקבלה שמור וזכור ודיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשמו תפארת ולתהילה לחדותי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 בני שבת נקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 בני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 בני שבת מקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קומי תהי מתוך ההפכה, רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 לשבת קבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 לשבת מקבלה. התנערי ויפה קומי, לבשי בגדי תפארתי חמי, על יד בן ישי בית הלחמי, קורבה אל נפשי גאלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 לשבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, יללי, לשבת מקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורי כולי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 לשבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 לשבת מקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת עליו, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 לשבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, יללי, 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 לשבת מקבלה. May be seated. 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Oni Melech, Malachei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom, Malachei Eyom, Oni Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's turn forward. Our Baruch Hu is on page 146, and again we ask you to rise as you are able. Ya la la la, ya la ya la la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Ya ya la la la, ya ya la la la, ya ya la la ya la la la. Ya ya la la la, ya ya la la la, ya la 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 ya la. Ya la la, Baruch Hu et Adonai, HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai, HaMevorach, HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'ed. We can hold our places and turn to the back to 677. 677. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and you will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Adonai echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Let's be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'ayu letotafot bein einecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Let's turn to 157 and we can read together in the English. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Let's turn the page. Yallai, 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 כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נטע בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Yallai, 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 yallai. Let's turn again. Page 161 on the left. We'll go to the Hebrew on the right to 160 and then back again. Let them in love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Ashkivenu Leshalom, Ve'hamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Ashkivenu Leshalom. Let there be love, let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. We move into the Tefillah 164. We rise again as we are able. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Konei Hakol, Ve'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imaot, Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Hakol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofe Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Baal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Mimit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata lachayot hakol, Baruch ata Adonai, Mechaye hakol. ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kadoshim b'chol yom yalu chasela Baruch ata Adonai ha'el ha'kadosh. Let's be seated. Let's read again on page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'eh lehodot. 178. Shalom Rav an Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav an Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. Let's take some time for our own private prayer or reflections. If you'd like to look at a reading to reflect upon, you can look at 179 through 180 and choose any reading you like, or just take some time for your own quiet and your own prayer. Shalom bimromav, hu יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה יאללה לה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה יאללה לה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה יאללה לה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה יאללה לה עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen. We turn to 371 in the middle of the page because it's after our prayer for peace and wholeness, where we have added not just over all of the people of Israel, but also Kol Yoshvei Tevel, over all of the inhabitants of the world. We want peace, we want wholeness, we want strength, but we know that there are some who are in the midst of struggles. And if you picked up one of our little handouts in that middle column, when you open it up, are names that have been shared with us. But if you have a name that you would like to share out loud, we invite you just to call them out, and we'll come together in a prayer for healing and for wholeness. For those names that have been shared, those that haven't, we certainly keep in mind all of these hostages that are being held, and also for those that have been freed today. An incredible moment. I wish I could say really a beautiful moment, although there's a lot of gratitude that these few have been released. Yafa Adair was 85 years old. Daniela Aloni, who's 44. Amelia Aloni, who's just 9. Aviv Asher and Raz Asher, who are 2 and 5. Doron Katz Asher, 34 years old. Chana Katsir, who's 77. Ruthie Monder is 78. Karen Monder is 54. And Ohad Monder is 9. Adina Moshe, who's 72 years old. Margalit Moses, 77. And Hannah Perry, 79 years old. None of them should have needed to go through this moment, this time, but They are certainly in our prayers for healing and wholeness too. 371 in the middle of the page. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Praise are you, Adonai, our sovereign of all, who redeems the captive, who lets them free. It's a line that we say in the liturgy in the morning services. Any morning, doesn't have to be Shabbat morning, but we're going to say it tomorrow morning. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim, who frees the captive. But we also said it a little while ago. Not the first part, but in the middle of the Amidah, of that standing prayer, there's another line where we say, Somech noflim verofei. I know you have to do it by ear, right? Verofei cholim umatir asurim. So the first one is Somech noflim, is supporting the fallen. Verofei cholim is healing the sick. And umatir asurim is freeing the captive. And I think our sages have all put them all together because this represents people around us who are suffering. And it's interesting they put it in a prayer where people are suffering in the midst of a prayer that says God is super powerful and is filled with gevurah, all of this power, and yet there are folks that need support and who need to be seen and who need to be rescued. I wonder what they were thinking of. What were folks who are Jewish and they were saying this prayer, what were they thinking of before modern times, before you can have like a hip replacement, right? When you were suffering with something, when you had some kind of an ailment, what would you think would happen if somebody was held captive? And by the way, taking hostages among Jewish communities throughout the Middle Ages was a super common thing because these Jews would pay for it. They would pay to redeem, to ransom these captives. And we're seeing something similar in Israel today, right? There's 50, we hope, that are going to be released, but Israel is going to be releasing 150 different Palestinian prisoners who are suspected or who have been found guilty of acts of terrorism. But before modern times, if we couldn't fix things as easily, why would they say it? What were they hoping for? How are they going to find a way to find some strength to be even more resilient when I think that their lives were really pretty difficult? I think when we're in the midst of serious suffering, we have a hard time looking at a future. And that's all I've been able to think about since October 7th. How these people have suffered. What's happening in these tunnels underground to these hostages, to so many others. We've certainly have been learning what has been happening, what they're still discovering. People who we thought were hostages, well, their remains have been found. And so that hostage list gets shorter and shorter, even in the most grotesque of ways. I found a writing from a rabbi, a conservative rabbi. He's on the Upper West Side. His name is Jeremy Kalmanovsky. And he said something I found it really precious. I found it kind of healing to me. When you look at Somech Noflim V'Rovei Cholim U'Matir Asim, supporting the fallen, healing the sick, releasing the captives, what is all of that about? He says that it is God providing a tender and encouraging presence. I want people who are hurting, whomever they are, wherever they are, certainly these hostages, to have a tender and encouraging presence that's a part of them. He says, the grandeur of God is to raise the small until they can stand with dignity. The grandeur of God is to raise the small until they can stand with dignity. Powerful people bend others to their will. The Holy One of Blessing is Zokef Kifufim. God straightens up those who are bent over. Now, my theology, as a bunch of you folks will already know, I don't believe in that intervening God. I wish I did, but I can't. Because there's too much that's happening, and I feel that with all of this heartache and challenge, if God isn't intervening, then I'm going to be really angry. A lot like Elie Wiesel would say, and talk about his wounded faith, but I don't believe in a God that can intervene. But these messages of how God can help straighten those who are bent over, I think that comes to us. That's how we show up. That is what God, I think, is waiting for us to do, is actually to show up, and I can't say it often enough, because I think we're trained to kind of stay in our own homes and not necessarily get involved and not necessarily put ourselves out on the line. Today, there was, 40 or 50 people walking around Pearl Street with signs and Israeli flags, and we all had these little posters that they've been in the news a lot, these kidnap posters, holding them up because in a lot of cities, people have been tearing them down, of these hostage and kidnap signs of 4-year-olds and 80-year-olds. They've been tearing them down, and it breaks my heart, but we got together because we needed to show up for all of these people, just like in the prayer, who are going through this period of suffering, and they don't know if anybody is watching, if anybody is calling out their names. I think we are the ones who need to extend God's reach. We are the ones who need to engage in these kinds of efforts. There were 13 Israeli hostages, all women and children, who were redeemed today. We also can't forget about 11 foreign nationals, 11 from Thailand, 1 from the Philippines. At least 50, we hope, will be released in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners. And I have a sense of gratitude. I really do. And even in this Torah portion, we hear Judah's name be given from his mother. This is going to be Yehudah, Judah, Yehudah, like Hoda'ah. His name was an appreciation, a thanksgiving moment for the child. Yehudim are Jews, coming from this gratitude word. I think there is a tremendous amount of gratitude for these 13 hostages and 11 foreign Israeli hostages and another 11 from these other countries who have been through something so grotesque. But there's still over 200 more. And some of them, we don't even know their locations. So my gratitude feels limited today. It feels not complete or full. I think it's confronted by my anger. Today at this rally, we were talking about it, and one of these women that was there is actually a child survivor of the Holocaust. And she was talking to me and shaking because she felt like this exchange of human lives was sort of like how people would engage in a slave trade of years ago. That's what it felt like for her. That they're just looking at as not as human beings, but these hostages were just being negotiated as some other kind of commodity. And it was making her weep right in front of me. And I feel similarly. I don't understand, and I'm a little grateful that I can't, but I don't understand how Hamas wouldn't just release hostages. It's going to be in little pieces. So my gratitude is confronted by my anger. Why wasn't this one, at least this Israeli girl with Israeli and American citizenship who turned 4 today, like some folks were pulling for her? Then again, why her and not all of these others? It just makes me so angry that they're not released. And then, like a good rabbi, I try and have to confront myself with sources from our tradition. There's another word for gratitude in Jewish tradition. It's hakarat hatov. That is often the term for gratitude, and literally it means recognizing the good. You can't go through life without celebrating and recognizing the good. And the fact that these folks have been freed is amazing. And the fact that so many between our Jewish community in Boulder, which isn't so substantial, but even going to DC last week that I shared with lots of folks, to see almost 300,000 people demand their release was something that was comforting, to recognize the good. And when you recognize it, and you see it, and then you act on it, that's gratitude. Saying thank you is polite. It's not gratitude. Encountering something that is significant and then acting on it because you have that fullness, that really is gratitude. And that's what we need to do, to recognize the good, to see what gratitude can affirm. And I think it affirms that we're human beings created in God's image. And there's no exceptions to the rule of that. Even one's enemies are created in God's image. So there has to be a process of engaging, even in war, as humanely as possible. I want to share one last piece of what I've been thinking about. I wish I could give this is what we need to do. I think really we just need to show up. But the thing that, again, is giving me comfort from Jewish tradition is Yizkor. Yizkor, the time that most of us don't really pay a lot of attention to. We know about it on Yom Kippur, and there's a lot of folks that will come on Yizkor to remember loved ones who have died. But there's 3 other times over the course of the year when we say this Yizkor prayer, when we remember people whom we've loved and lost. 3 times, and they're all on the last day of joyful festival holy days, right? The end of Passover, the end of Shavuot, and the end of Sukkot. Those are like really important happy days, according to Jewish tradition. And I know a lot of us miss it, but the ending of this happiness is a time of remembrance. And I think Yizkor is important, not because we're told to do it. I'm done with that. Yizkor is important because there's a lot of folks that don't really do grief so well. In fact, our country diminishes it as much as it possibly can. But to give ourselves permission to grieve and to have that grief be intertwined with moments of joy like the festival of Sukkot, that's life. The sweet and the sorrow all together. Yizkor reminds us that it's okay to grieve. It reminds us it's okay to focus. It gives us permission to get out of our work and carpool routines. It gives us a chance to be authentically and meaningfully sad, perhaps. But it's also to recognize how precious life is. Yizkor reminds us of whom we've lost, but also on how we ought to live. I feel like since October 7th, every day has been Yizkor. There's amazing things and beautiful things that happen every day. A lot of us might have had special celebrations with loved ones just the other day. Ours was really sweet. But there's still this heaviness in my heart that's gone on these couple of months. So what do? I think we journey forward. I don't know how to bounce back, but I want us to bounce forward as best as we can and continue on that narrow bridge that we started the service with. That it's not always so easy, and sometimes I feel like I'm going to fall, and I hate heights. But I'm going to travel it anyway, because there's folks that are counting on us. And if we're in relationship, if we're in covenant, if we really believe in a community of belonging, then showing up is perhaps the most important thing we can do in this world. To love your neighbor as yourself and to recognize how precious life is. May they all be returned to their loved ones speedily and soon. Aleinu L'Shabeach is on page 586. We invite you to rise as you are able. 586 at the bottom of the page. Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol L'Atei Gedula L'Yotzer Bereshit Pukarei Haratzot Velo Samanu Kamishbechot Ha'adama Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem V'goralenu Kechol Hamonam V'anachnu Korim Umishtachavim Umodim Lefnei Melech Malchei HaMalachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We turn the page. Shehu Noteh Shamayim Ve'yoser Haaretz Umoshav Yekaro Bashamayim Mima'al Ushchinatu Zo Begovei Meromim Hu Eloheinu Ein Od Emet Malkeinu Efes Ulato Kakatuv V'Torato V'Yadatayom V'Hashivota Elevavecha Ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim imal v'al haaretz mitachat. In Od 591, V'nemar v'aya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. We can be seated. Zichronam levracha, may their memories be for a blessing. If you are observing a yard site or in a period of mourning, we invite you, if you choose, to rise for a moment, share the name of the one whom you are remembering, and then we'll continue with additional names from our community. To those names, we also remember within those first 30 days, Maxine Carpel, the mother of Gil Carpel, Byron Ween, the uncle of Mike Ween, Beth Lawton, the wife of John Lawton and the stepmother of Peter Lawton, Sheldon Kerper, the brother-in-law of Norm Strassner, Nancy Jeanette, the wife of Peter Jeanette, Vivian Silver, a dear friend of Miriam and David Toby. Vivian was found last week and was the founder of Women Wage Peace, working with Palestinians and Israelis together. And we remember Leonore Galen Mendelson. Those yard sites that we recall for this week that's passed: Jeanette Beer, Morris Bronstein, Sidney Richard Buckman, Jack Butt, Arthur Cohen, Sidney Dubin, Ben Fischler, Dwight Victor Galloway, Walt Glenn, LaDonna King, Margot Cohen, Ruth Lurie, Michael Margolis, Barbara Tober Margolis, Boris Melamed, Sidney J. Miller, Rose Panner, Bill Perlman, Carlos Rafael Pestana Pereira, Doris Rabinowitz, Miriam Schiff, Arthur Silverman, Olga Simon, Wallace Spector, Lillian Steinman, Jackie Stoutenberg, Lottie Timor, Miriam Ween, and William Young. Kaddish is on page 598. We stand together, shoulder to shoulder, supporting our friends who are mourners this Shabbat. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach rirutei v'yamlich machutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari v'meru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam omei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yitalal shemeid kudusha berichu le'ela min kol berachata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'miran be'alma v'meru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'meru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'meru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comfort to the bereaved here and everywhere. Let's all say amen. I'm going to ask you to remain standing for our closing prayer. You'll be able to find it on page let's see, 678, page 678, at the bottom of the page. And after our closing song, we'll invite you just to bring back our prayer books, and we can make a motzi together in the social hall just beyond these doors, and we'll make a quick motzi. You can have a nash, and we'll wish each other well. Kolod balevav v'ni mar nefesh Yehudi homiya ulfatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia Lo avda tikvatenu hatikva bat shnot alpayim liotam chofshi ve'atzenu eretz Zion Yerushalayim liotam chofshi ve'atzenu eretz Zion Yerushalayim. With a breath, we wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Wish your neighbors a Shabbat Shalom. And I'm glad you folks were with us tonight on a cold, icy night.